Hey everybody, Stephen here with Four Oaks Crafts, and welcome to this video. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make a coffee scoop made out of cherry wood. Alright, this is why I love woodworking, because you can take a block of wood like this and transform it into something beautiful and useful. So join with me and I'll show you how to make it. Let's get started. Okay, let's first talk about wood selection. As I've said in other videos and tutorials, I really recommend using hardwoods for most kitchen utensils. Not only do they look great, but they're very durable. I'm using cherry wood for this coffee scoop project, but I've also made them out of walnut and maple. I used a regular metal coffee scoop for my kitchen to trace out the design for this project. You can also go to Google and just Google wooden coffee scoops and see there's a lot of other designs out there. So pick one that you like and go with that. As you can see, I've traced out the bowl area for the scoop, and I've also traced out a handle. My handle is probably about 2.5 inches long, but you can of course make it longer than that if you like. Now to drill out this bowl area here, I'm going to use a 1.5 inch Forstner bit. I'm going to be drilling down into the wood about 1 inch. As you can see, I've marked that depth on my Forstner bit with a Sharpie. And that depth is going to give me roughly a 2 tablespoon scoop. Okay, as you can see here, we have drilled out the bowl for our coffee scoop using the Forstner bit. Notice that I did that before I cut the scoop out of the bandsaw. I drilled the hole while this was still a block of wood. It's a 2 inch by 2 inch by 12 inch piece of cherry, and it's a lot easier to manage that way. The only downside with using the Forstner bit is you can probably see this little dimple that it leaves in the bottom of the hole, and I'll just figure out a way to sand that out. But otherwise it does leave a very clean hole, and there's other ways that you could do this. I tried doing this with a round bit, round nose router bit, and plunging it down in the wood with my plunge router. That's another way you can do this. This was the hole that it left. It wasn't quite as smooth, and it wasn't as efficient and as easy as the Forstner bit. So I definitely like the Forstner bit method. Another way you could do it is if you're more into the carving and just want to use hand tools and don't have some of these other tools, you can go get a spoon gouge or a carving gouge, like something like this, and then all you're going to do is simply take your time and chisel around and chisel the bowl area out like that. Certainly doable. It's just going to take you a little bit more time. All right, next step is we're going to take this. I've outlined my coffee scoop and the handle. We're going to take this over to the bandsaw and cut it out. Okay, I've cut the coffee scoop out of the block of cherry, and as you can see here, I stayed with the bandsaw. I stayed well outside of my trace lines, and the reason I did that is I'm going to take this over to the sander next, and I want to leave enough wood around the edges of this coffee scoop to sand and shape it. So I didn't want to cut this too thin on the bandsaw. So the next step is I've marked the depth of my coffee scoop, and I've marked the profile. So I'm going to cut out the bottom of the scoop, and I'm going to stay outside of this line as well. I want to make sure that I don't cut into the coffee scoop. So I marked it here. You can lay out the profile any way you like, use your creativity or however you want to do it. Okay, so we moved on here to the next step where we're going to start sanding and do some rough shaping of our coffee scoop. And I brought out one of my favorite tools to do this for these smaller projects, and that is a small sander. This one I picked up at Harbor Freight for about $50. It's made by Central Machinery. You can also order these on Amazon. And I've got a 1-inch by 30-inch belt on here. It's 80 grit. And again, we're doing the rough sanding step here. Probably want to take this outside of your shop and do it, but definitely make sure you wear a dust mask because it's going to make a lot of dust. All right, well, let's get started. Okay, so here is the cherry scoop after I've gone through a bunch of sanding steps. I've gone through several grits of sandpaper. As you know, I started with the rough shaping on the belt sander, and that was 80 grit. Then I hand sanded, and I started with 120 grit, moved to 220, then 320, and then up to 500 grit. I then used my micro mesh cloths, and I love to use those because they do such a good job. I started at 1500 grit, and I went up to 4000 grit with the micro mesh. I then wiped off the dust. I wiped all the dust off of the coffee scoop with a damp rag, and that helps to raise the grain on here a little bit. Then I went back and I hit that raised grain with 1500 grit to 4000 grit micro mesh. All right, so there's the finished cherry scoop after all the sanding. The next step, we're going to apply a food safe mineral oil. Okay, for the final step, what I've done is I've applied 3 to 4 coats of mineral oil. This mineral oil penetrates the wood and it helps prevent drying and cracking. It's also food safe, but what I want you to also notice is how it's brought out the beauty of the wood grain. I just love it when you add the stuff to it and it brings out the beauty of the wood. Just follow the directions that come with your container. You can use other finishes. A lot of other finishes are food safe once they've dried and cured, so you just need to read the container directions and make sure and follow those directions on how to apply it. In the description field below, you'll find links to a couple of tutorials I've written on making wooden coffee scoops. I hope you enjoy them. If you like this video, please consider subscribing. Thanks, and see you next time.